my name is Zach, and I'm with WorleyTutorials.com. And this is the last video of the Camera Raw in the Photoshop Basics series. So if you would, stay tuned. There's more to see in Photoshop. We've talked about the tools up here, and we've talked about the sliders in the basic editing section. Now we're going to be talking about these different tabs and what they do for us. So the very first one is basic. We've already talked about it. The next one is tone curve. What that is you can modify the highlights and the lights. And as you can see, as you move this adjustment, you'll see the curves happening. It is kind of like the basics over here, like the highlights and the shadows. The difference is that it's much more specific. So you can move these dials around, and you can see that it's very, very subtle, very specific to the highlights and the lowlights and the darks and the shadows. So that's what that is. The other thing you can do is go to point, and that allows you to adjust this kind of like curves. Actually, it's just like curves in After Effects and in Premiere. So this is just really basic color correction. Up here at the top, you have the highlights, you have the midtones, and you have the darks. And then you have the intensity on the vertical. So if I bring, let's say if I bring this point down diagonally, it's going to darken everything because it's going to take the darks and make them more prominent. If I pull it the other way, it's going to make the lights more prominent because, again, up here is the highlights, up here is the dark. So if I take this midpoint, I pull it more towards the darks, it's going to get darker. If I pull it more towards the top, it's going to get brighter. Now, as you can see, this is the RGB, which means all three of the colors that are used. So that's simply just taking all of the reds, all the greens, and all the blues and making them the midtones more bright or more dark. So you can click on this drop down and go to red. And now all you're doing is taking the midtones out of only the red pixels, or you're boosting them up. Same thing with the shadows, the red shadows. So you can really start to get a very cool feel. So as you can see here, it's you still have a lot of the greens in the shadows because you're pulling out a lot of the red, but you're leaving a lot of the red in the highlights, as you can see here. To see the difference, of course, you can click on preview and you can see whether you like it or not. So actually, I like that. So same thing with the green, same thing with the blue. Mid-tone, make it darker, make it brighter. Pull the greens out, boost the greens. So that is what you can do. You can also change the feel of it. All of these things are just different types and different ways. If you do happen to make a point and you want to get it off, all you have to do is click and drag it off the screen. So you make a point, you're like, oh, no, I don't want that. I can click and I can just pull it all the way off the graph and it'll take it off. The next one is sharpening and noise reduction. Noise reduction is that kind of digital fuzziness that you see. It happens a lot when you take a picture that's underexposed. So you don't have enough light in your picture, and then you try to boost it, you try to brighten it or raise the exposure, and you're going to see that what that means is the camera was not able to see anything, so it's just kind of filling it with something. It's almost like the camera's guessing what's in that space, which in most cases it's nothing. Therefore, you get that digital noise. So you can reduce that noise and make it a much more smooth image. It is surprising how well this thing works. Now at the very top you have sharpening, and that you can see right away. What happens to your image. It sharpens it a lot. It makes it very, very crisp. So you can click the preview and you can see the difference. Again, it's really, really subtle, but kind of not, because when you turn it on, you can really, like if you look at this leaf, I'm going to zoom in here. I'm holding spacebar to get my hand tool just really quickly. And if I bring the sharpness down, actually I'm just going to do the preview. So there, the sharpness is on, and I'm going to turn the preview off, and you can see that it kind of fuzzes out just a little bit. So it really sharpens the image quite a bit. The very next one is the grayscale and the hue and saturation. So you have hue, which hue basically means that the reds can register more orange, and the oranges can register more yellow, and so on and so forth. And what that's going to do is just kind of really tweak your image. So you can make somebody look like they're from Mars and leave all the other colors alone. It's kind of a fun little thing. I'm going to double click on the sliders to bring it back. Saturation, we've talked about that a little bit with the target adjustment tool, but you can also come over here and do it manually. So if you want to just pull all the reds out or one specific type of color, then you can obviously do that. Luminance, what that means is it's going to take all the reds or all whatever color you choose and make those reds dark. So it's going to take all those red pixels and really just darken them out, or you can raise it and make them to where they are much brighter. This, you won't see much detail in certain colors. So in this case, there's not a whole lot of red. As you can see, most of the red is in the skin tone. But the oranges, there's quite a bit of orange, so you can see that it's adjusting a lot more of the image. Greens, there's probably a lot of greens in here, so I'm going to pull this down. It's going to make it darker, and it's going to make it brighter. Oh, surprisingly enough, it doesn't affect it that much. That, again, is why you use the target adjustment tool, because I would assume, okay, greens are going to be affected a lot. Well, maybe not necessarily. So use the target adjustment tool, target what you want to make darker or brighter, and adjust it that way, and it'll automatically select that for you. You can change it, and it's going to bring the saturation up on that type of color. So I can, slide around. If I bring the saturation up even more, you can really see the difference. So it's changing the highlights from the original color to more of a blue, more of a pink, more of a green, whatever you choose. And the same thing with the shadows. So if I bring the saturation up for that, then there you go. That's what you get. I'm going to double click on these, bring it back to normal. The very next one, I don't really use this very often. So what you can do is you can kind of warp your image. So let's say you use a wide angle lens, okay, and it's like super bubbled out. This is the original image, and you want to kind of fix that. What you can do is come in here into distortion and pull the image back just a little bit to kind of balance out that problem. Now the issue is that, as you can see here, there's not enough image to fill in this space. So once you do this kind of thing, then you'd have to go up to your crop tool, and you'd have, there we go. Get your crop tool and make your crop, and then it'll be fixed. So that's kind of how you use those types of things. But again, I don't really use it that often. So if you need to, then obviously definitely go ahead. Manual. I'm going to double click here. Effects. You can give grain to your image. This is, again, just a very stylistic type of thing. Grain, back in the day, during film photography, different types of film would have different types of grain to it. So that's kind of why that's there. You can change the size and the amount and the roughness. And then the vignette, if you pull it towards the left, it's going to give it a dark vignette. And if you pull it to the right, it's going to give it a white vignette for all those grandmas out there that want pictures of their grandkids. Yes, it is. I rarely see a white vignette anymore. It is kind of an old school type of thing. Although the dark vignette is very popular right now. I'm going to boost this a lot so we can see what happens here. The midpoint, what that means is I can adjust it to where the radius, so it makes it to where the circle is much smaller, more focused, or much broader. The roundness is, do you want it to be more of an oval, or do you want it to be a perfect circle? So if you take it to the right, it's a perfect circle. If you take it to the left, it's more oval. The feathering is what you kind of would expect. It's basically the gradient from nothing to a lot of vignette, a lot of black. Now the highlights, what that does is it allows highlights to kind of bleed through your vignette. It makes it to where it's not as intense. It's more subtle on the highlighted areas. Now this is kind of a darker image, so you can't really see it that much, but play around with it on yours and you can see the difference. Again, this one, I wouldn't be able to explain it well enough to you because I don't use it very often. So I'm just going to skip right over that. The presets. Okay. What this is let's say I have an adjustment and I want to make this right here. And I have like 14 of the exact same image, at least the same setting. Then what I can do is I can go to my presets. I can go down here to this add new, and I can save this preset to whatever I want. And so if I let's say I want to go to this preset right here, there you go, then that's going to have all the same settings from that edit. And then I can go back to Untitled. There you go. The very next one, snapshots. What this means is, let's say you want to save this edit, but you want to keep messing around with some other stuff. So again, I'm going to save this as a snapshot. I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to pull the saturation all the way out. I want to see what it looks like black and white. Then I'm going to come back to my snapshots, add new, Untitled 2, and now I can compare between the two different snapshots. So I got color, black and white. Which one do I like better? Also, another thing is, let's say you do want both black and white and color of the same image. You can click on this one and then say save image, save it as a JPEG or whatever, export it. And then you can do the same thing with Untitled 2 and you can export it. The very last things I want to talk about is actually how you export. So down here at the bottom, you have this information. You have Adobe RGB, 8-bit, and this is the size of the image and how big it is, and then how many PPI, how many pixels per inch. You can click on this blue text and you can actually change these features. So if you want to change it from 18 to 16-bit, that just makes it a higher resolution. It also makes the size of the file much bigger. The size of the image, if you want to boost it to where you're going to put it on a poster or something, then you can do that. If you want to bring it down because you're going to export it for the web, then you can do that here also. The resolution, if you're going to be doing it for print, then 240 is a good number. 300 is kind of the default number. If you're going to be using this for screen, then you can go ahead and change this to 72. It just depends on what you're printing for. So I'm going to hit OK on this. And then the two options we have are open image, and that'll just open it up into Photoshop with all the edits that we have. If you click done, there's a little XMP file, and that is a reference for Camera Raw to reference to with this image. The last part is if you go to save image, you can actually export it directly from Camera Raw as whatever type of file you want. So first you select where you want to save it, then you want to select what you want to call it, and you can do different type of extensions. So let's say you have, whatever you want to call it, and then you tell it, I want it to give a 2-digit serial number, and I want it to start at whatever number. So if I push 1, it's going to say 01. If I change this to a 3-digit serial number, it's going to say the title 001. Then I can change the extension of it to whatever I need to. JPEG is probably going to be the most common other than Photoshop. So the reason is because that's what a lot of people use on the web and everywhere else. And honestly, as long as you have the setting the way you want to, if you're going to print it out or whatever, then JPEG is going to be just fine. And then you can change the quality also. Then you would click save, and it would save your image. So there you go. That is Camera Raw. That's how you can edit your photos overall. And we're going to continue on with Photoshop itself. And so if you are interested in that, please stay tuned. If you have any questions, go to worleytutorials.com on the connect page. You can either email me or you can post directly on the post of this tutorial. You can also find me on facebook.com /WorleyTuts and Twitter at /WorleyTuts. So we're going to continue on these videos in this series, and thanks for watching.